Hello, everyone. Today we have Sindhoor Pangal with us here. She's a canine behaviorist and canine myotherapist and the director at Barks. Sindhoor's forthcoming title, Dog Nose, which is published with HarperCollins India, is a fascinating read about dogs in general, domestic dogs, street dogs, and there is so much to learn about it. We're all going through a tough time, and I think what is missing from this conversation is animals in general. We're not talking about how animals are feeling at this point. Can you tell me how the pandemic has affected our dogs?
Our dogs that live in our houses with us, they are part of our family for many of us, and they're not immune from what is going on out there either. And who they are and what they experience eventually impacts us as well. So this is an important conversation to have, not just from a hey, what is the dog feeling, but how does this impact all of us? It does. So I think the first thing to remember that I'd like to point out is that dogs are the stress that we are experiencing, the fear, the terror that many of us are feeling, that impacts our dogs. Dogs are really, really good at reading our emotions, reading our expressions, our intentions. And so imagine what they're going through because they can see us. Their lives have changed drastically. And they can see how stressed we are, but they don't understand head or tail of it. And then this starts sort of coming out in behaviors like maybe excessive chewing, peeing all over the place, maybe even biting, which is then going to add more stress. That's the vicious cycle, right? The last thing any of us need at this point is for our family members to add to the stress, for our dogs to add to the stress. And the other big issue is we are at home all the time. Now, we might imagine that's great for dogs, but not entirely. This is a bit counterintuitive. Dogs need close to 16 hours of sleep a day, sometimes maybe even more. So given that, if we are at home all day, there's a lot of chaos and noise. Somebody or the other is getting up and going to the kitchen. Somebody's going to the bathroom. There's just a lot of people around. And dogs can't actually sleep when there's a lot of movement around, particularly with us. We've seen that, right? If you just get up and walk away from a dog, the dog is going to get up and walk away behind us. So they are not getting as much sleep as they need to. So they're sleep deprived and they're stressed. Bad combination. We're going to see more and more of those behaviors that we might struggle to cope with. And of course, the last thing that people do recognize is that they're not getting their walks, they're not getting their mental stimulation, they're not getting the kind of physical movement that they need. So that's a bad mix. It's adding to all of this. So I think these are the things to keep in mind and be aware of during this pandemic.
Could you suggest ways that in which you think pet dogs can cope right now?
So I think I'm going to give you my top 3 tips kind of a thing. So I think the first thing, which should kind of be obvious at this point already, is sleep. They need sleep. We somehow have to find a way to increase the amount of sleep that they're getting. So the advice that I give to a lot of my clients and students is try to structure your day a little bit. Try to have maybe office hours for the entire household, where maybe 1 hour in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening, everybody is sitting at their desk doing things, sitting down, settle down, not getting up and walking around. So get your coffee, get your charger, whatever it is, get everything, keep it there, and sit down for that hour. Have those kind of quiet periods during the day, or settle down. I don't mean don't talk, but don't move around too much, because that's what kind of disrupts sleep. And during those afternoon periods when they tend to sleep more, dogs tend to sleep more, not too many loud noises, dark curtains, reduce the light, sort of the right environment for sleep. So the more sleep we can get into them, the better they're going to cope with whatever we throw at them. So even if we can't control anything else, this is something that we can try, and their body and their mind will do the rest of the work. The second tip that I would definitely suggest is give them mental enrichment that they're not getting those activities. So something at home, there are lots of ideas online for DIY puzzles, do-it-yourself puzzles, something that involves sniffing, something that involves maybe chewing, maybe searching. These are things that you would probably try and add into their routine. And sort of compensate for the fact that they're not stepping out for a walk. We can even do things like adding a little obstacles, brooms and this and that, poles and pillars so that they step over it and get some of that good functional movement in using their core. And then the third thing, sort of a self-serving as well, is take care of yourselves. This is not like a philosophical thing, right? Deal with your stress. It may feel a little funny that I'm saying go do yoga because your dog is stressed, but it really does work that way. We need to take care of ourselves if we are caring for others. If we are stressed, they're not going to be able to handle it very well. So try to find what centers ourselves, try to find what can help us calm down, and that can go a long way with our dogs, really. And to me, that's the two-way relationship. That's the beauty of a two-way relationship between a dog and a human being. Is part of me has to care for you, but also in that I have to care for myself. That's the most beautiful thing for me, and I think that's something I would recommend as well.
When all of this ends, and I hope very soon, how do you think our dogs are going to settle, because they're so used to having us around right now?
The first thing we need to understand is separation anxiety is a very specific condition. It's quite extreme and it's quite strong, and not all dogs are going to actually get into a state of mental anxiety. What is more likely going to happen is that they're going to be sort of thrown off balance because it's a very sudden change in their routine. All we need to do is to make sure that we sort of gradually make that happen. Let's not forget that, most of these dogs being home alone for 6 to 8 hours is not unusual. It is something they've done in the past. It is something that's familiar. We just need to gently lead them back to that area, that duration. So we start with smaller durations. Don't suddenly go from, 0 to 100 miles an hour kind of a thing. Don't suddenly go working into 8 hours. Start with maybe a few seconds. Just step out, buy something, come back in, take a phone call, come back in, then a few minutes at a time, and build it up gradually to maybe an hour, 2 hours. And after that, it's familiar. Now they know what it is. They've dealt with this in the past. They're going to be able to deal with it much better. The only exceptions to this are probably going to be dogs that have actually developed anxiety during the pandemic because of all that we spoke about, or dogs that were got during the pandemic. They've never been home alone. These dogs may actually end up developing actual separation anxiety. So, of course, even with them, I'm first going to encourage that you try gradually introducing them to be home alone. But if that's not working, then you're probably going to need professional help for them.
And anything for our street dogs?
The pandemic really has impacted the street dogs as well, given how closely connected they are to human lives. So their food sources have gone away. The people around them have gone away. It's very confusing. And as there is food scarcity, there is going to be more fighting amongst the dogs. They're going to start moving into other territories, which can lead to, again, fights and even death. And this is something that we really do not want to, that's the last thing we want to be dealing with at this point, given everything else. Apart from the fact that it's very inhumane to allow this to happen to dogs, it's also a health hazard to if we start having animals kind of dying in large numbers. So we must be cognizant of this. And so I think number one is, if possible, please step out and feed them. The police force is supporting this in many states. The government is as well. There are feeder cards available as well. So check with the welfare community in your city, get them to help you and go feed these dogs. Even if you can't feed them, go spend time with them. We are seeing that many of them are actually saying, hey, food is fine, but we've really been missing human company. You can see them craving it. Go give them a little bit of that. Of course, remain safe through it. Do it in a safe way. This is the time we have to take care of each other and that includes our animals too. We really need to take care of everyone at this point. It's critical for us to do that.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.